It was interesting because the Apostle Paul himself in the early church always saw working with the poor as going hand in glove with the message of the gospel. In the book of Galatians, in chapter 2, and you don't have to actually even turn there, I'll just read it for you. The Apostle Paul is at least 10 years, he's actually a little more than 10 years into his ministry since the time he received a blinding light on a road to Damascus, and Jesus literally knocked him, I almost said off his ass, but I won't say that because we don't know if he was riding a jackass at the time. We don't know. He might have been walking. So he knocked him down, and he's been ministering and spreading the word of God throughout, the whole region of the Roman Empire. And finally, he gets to meet the apostles. It's like 12 years later. He gets to meet the apostles. And it says, and he writes to the Galatian church what that experience was like in Galatians chapter 2. I'm going to read, verse 8. For God, who was at work in Peter as an apostle to the circumcised, meaning the Jews, was also at work in me as an apostle to the Gentiles. James, Peter, and John, those esteemed as pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship when they recognized that grace was given to me. They agreed we should go to the Gentiles and they to the Jews. All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I had been eager to do all along. So when he finally meets the apostles, James and Peter and John, the high-ranking top leaders of the church, they're saying, okay, here's the deal. We recognize God moved in you, Paul, to give this message. Like he moved in us to go to the Jews, he's moved in you to go to the Gentiles. So we all know what the message is because he shared it's the message of Jesus Christ, died on the cross for your sins, rose again from the dead. But here's this other piece that's crucial as you give that message. Remember the poor. Remember the poor. And so I want to talk through the Christmas season about ministries in Spokane that are remembering the poor. And one of them is led at this present time by my good friend Steve Allen. Coming up here, Steve. Everybody give Steve Allen a round of applause. And, okay. All right, have a seat there. Steve Allen is the Director of Family Promise of Spokane. So, Steve, what is Family Promise? What do you guys do?
Well, there's a huge spectrum of homelessness. I'm sure you've seen them on the side of the road or you've seen them asking for things. There's about 2,000 homeless kids in Spokane and quite a wide range of homeless families. Parents, mom, dad, with children who are homeless. And so how to help them, we partner with 35 different churches in Spokane, 12 of which will host 3 to 4 homeless families at a time for a week. And 12 churches rotate, so every week they will rotate, and then after 13 weeks start over again. Well, they'll provide dinner for them in their church. They have a Sunday school room, so each family will have their own room, kind of set up like a little motel. They do a continental breakfast in the morning, and then they go to our day center during the day, where we have a washer and dryer, dining room, computers, look for jobs, day rooms, showers, that kind of thing. And so, in short, what Family Promise does is it partners with churches to help homeless families overcome the obstacles of getting back into homes and help them stay there.
So the church has become, like, for 1 week, a temporary hotel and dining hall.
Exactly.
And after when their week's done, the families move on and go to a different church, and then it goes on, and your turn as a church comes around like once every 3 months.
Absolutely. Sunday after church, they go get everything set up, and the families come around 3 or 4, and then they go there all week long, and then Sunday before church, they leave. All the beds are torn down. The beds are then passed on to the next church. All the linens are washed, and it's all run by volunteers.
So you have 12 churches who sponsor the housing part of it, exactly. But there's more churches that involved. What are the others?
So the other 20-ish churches are support churches. So a lot of our churches that work great for housing, maybe they don't have enough people to help provide all the meals they need and all the overnight hosts or driving vans. And so other churches come alongside to kind of help ease the burden that's required each week for these host churches.
So one church might house, but a different church feeds.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So I'm the current chairman of the Spokane Homeless Coalition. Steve's the current media liaison, and we've been working together for over a year on the leadership team. The coalition meets the first Thursday of every month right here in this cafe. And so you'll have Salvation Army and Union Gospel Mission and Catholic Charities and Providence Healthcare. I mean, 70, 80 organizations are here, and they talk about homelessness in Spokane. One of the things that's interesting is if you are a homeless family, mom, dad, kids, there's almost nowhere for you to go. If you are a single man, plenty of places. Single woman, a few places. Single woman with kids, lots of places. A mom, a dad, and kids, it's like, ooh, gee, you're out of luck. What we have to do is divide. The guy's going to have to go to the men's homeless shelter. The woman's going to have to go to one of the shelters that takes women and kids. So it's very unusual to have a ministry in Spokane that actually takes the intact mom, dad, kids family. Salvation Army and Family Promise are the only two. And Salvation Army's waiting list is a little bit sketchy on how long they have because the demand is so
They
high.
only let them stay for 90 days, where we're as long as it takes to get them back into homes. The other thing that's really challenging is single dads with kids. There's no place for single dads with kids.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Single dads with kids, there's no shelters, no places you can go.
We had a dad with a 16-year-old daughter, kind of a difficult situation. They got kind of kicked out of their house, and they were separated for about 4 months until they finally found us.
Well,
and we were able
like
to,
she went to a women's shelter, he goes to
she went to a
friends or
somebody's
something.
house, and he went over here, and they kind of waited.
So she was one of the over 2,000 homeless juveniles in Spokane County
that are registered at
and are
Spokane County
still
School.
going to school, still trying to go to school. Over 2,000 in Spokane County. So your work is kind of this unusual in that you take them together. We had a family show up one time at the old church in a van. Mom, dad, 3 little preschool kids, and a grandma. I think she was the mom's mom. And we called the Salvation Army hotline at that time. And they were like, yeah, we can't do anything tonight. And we followed up the next day, and it was an 8-week waiting list to get them a place to stay. 8 weeks, it's November. You're living in a van downtown. It's like 8 weeks is a long time to be doing that. So the need is huge. And to have any ministry that could say, yeah, we'll take them. And I've referred a lot to you. So Family Promise, when kind of a family just sort of walks in, what's their experience?
Well, first of all, our niche is that, we don't take, and again, there's a reason for this, but because we're so heavily dependent on volunteers, we don't take any homeless families that have a felony or are in drugs or alcohol for the last 90 days and serious social or mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And part of that is because our volunteers aren't trained to be able to deal with those kind of things. That's part of the reason. Part of it is there's just a spectrum of homelessness that among the many that are homeless that are just like us. You put them, I could put them right here, and you wouldn't even know that they were homeless. Whatever situation, whether it's just domestic abuse and they've had to escape their situation, or maybe it's just a health and a job crisis all happening kind of at the same time. There's just many reasons of helping this kind of homelessness that I think sometimes there's stereotype that goes against it. So yeah, they come into our program. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and they spend the night in a church. But you try to give them individual rooms in a church has a lot of classrooms.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they come to the day center that morning and describe kind of what would be a typical thing to happen during the day.
Well, there really is a typical thing. I mean, a lot of them come with no jobs, no place, no family, nothing. And so from there, you kind of begin to say, okay, how did you get here, and where do you want to go? And from there, if it's looking for a job, we'll begin to take. We don't. Our organization is so small, we don't have all the resources, and so but we know people who do. And so a lot of that is going down to Goodwill, and they have a resume class. So they'll help them learn how to get a resume and get themselves set up. Every person that comes through, we want to get them back into homes. So a lot of them will come with evictions, most of them unfair or unjust. Some of them legit, I don't know, it depends on the situation. We'll have to go through a responsible renters class at Salvation Army. We'll partner with SNAP and try to figure out their situation there and work stores to help them get interview training and different things. So we really try to find out where each family's at, assess the issues, and then make a personalized plan to get them kind of over those obstacles so we can get them back. We had one family that came in from a previous marriage, and then there was a lot of debt that was really insurmountable. So we helped get them a lawyer so they could kind of declare bankruptcy and have a fresh start. And now they're doing great. They live actually just down the street, 5 kids, a mom and dad, and now they're having a fresh new start. But they wouldn't have been able to do that without an advocate coming alongside and figuring out what the issues are, finding people that, the doors. Really, we have all the keys. We have keys that open doors that they don't know exist and help get them through it. Sometimes we have to kind of push our way through these doors, but Renee, Nora is our case manager. I call her a bulldog. She fights for our families, and she's incredible.
So they'll come down and meet with Renee personally, and she'll kind of hear their backstory, what's going on, what are your problems, sort of develop a profile of what their history's been, and be able to say, okay, your first obstacle to overcome is this, this, and this. It's interesting when you talk to the case managers in Spokane who house homeless people, it's easier to get someone housing who has had a felony than it is someone who's had an eviction.
Yeah, there's a 2%.
Eviction's worse than a felony for trying to find housing for someone.
Right now, there's 2% of open and a vacancy in apartments and houses, rental houses. So there's a huge demand and a very little supply. So the people that own the houses, they can be, they can be picky at who they pick out. And usually, we'll never pick somebody that's an eviction.
And so part of what happens is in your case management is like, okay, what are your obstacles? If you have an eviction, can we clean this up? If you have any kind of record, can we clean this up? And you mentioned you don't do felonies, you don't do mental illness. And when we meet, in fact, this Thursday at 9 a.m. will be the next Homeless Coalition. Anyone can come. You can sit in and listen. It's interesting because in that room, everybody says mental illness is the number one problem we're trying to face and deal with regarding homelessness and poverty culture and that sort of thing. Even the law enforcement officers who come, they know that, half the time these people we're arresting for screaming and yelling on a sidewalk, we just have nowhere to take them. So we don't have a state hospital to take them back to and put them on their meds and get them stabilized and get them a couple of days rest and then they're back out because they're okay. They're off their meds. That's why they're going yelling on a sidewalk. So they have to take them to jail. That costs us taxpayers $135 a night, and they stay in jail. And in our county jail, we spend $1 million a year on just the medications. Just medications, $1 million a year here. And and most of these people get back and they're okay, and have 3 or 4 days, they're kind of back on their meds and they're all right. And now I'm in jail though, and I got to stay here 30 days. Now I got a court appointment, and the court appointment means I got to have all this other stuff go on, and I'm going to be tied up with legal fees and all that kind of thing. And that's one of the things that Spokane is trying to solve with the Spokane Municipal Alternative Court downtown, which is what we make the sack lunches for. So just giving you a little backstory about what a convoluted system it is that we're all trying to work together to solve. You work with SNAP, you'll work with WorkSource. So someone has no jobs resume, you don't have to do that, right? What do you do? How does that?
Well, here's a good example. A gal named Kelsey, she had a 4-year-old daughter and a baby. She was a domestic abuse. In fact, she would even say when she came in a program a year ago, I was a racist, a domestic abuser, and on drugs. She got kicked out of her house by her husband, and now she has 2 kids. She has no education, no job, no driver's license, never been on her own. She's 21, 2, something. And what do you do? Like, where would you start? How would you even begin that process? So we got her into our program. We gave her, get her a place of stability. You have a meal every day. You have a place to stay. Okay, that's just take that load off. Now let's begin to see what you need. Well, you need a job. Okay, where's that going to work? We got her a job up at as kind of a CNA. Okay, I need a driver's license. Okay, well, how do you get a driver's? I got to go through class. We help her get the driver's license together with we were able to get her a car through some of her connections there. What else do you need? Okay, we need get my kids in daycare. Okay, let's work on that. Get that to happen. Okay, what do I need now? Okay, we need, and then that's the step. It's just these step by step by step, getting in a place where we can help them get what they need to get. Sure. Now she's living up in Meade. She's got a great apartment. She's got a good job. Her kids are all set up, and she's doing great. All things said. So
anyway. you guys have a pretty high success rate.
Yeah. So because our niche is so small. We work with people that we really feel like a second chance, give them a hand up, not a handout. 85% of the family the last 9 years are still in permanent homes, which is pretty unheard of in terms of statistics, again, because...
usually it's about 10% success rate. You guys are running in the 80, 90%.
We really focus on those that kind of highly motivated, I'll do whatever it takes to get out of this, not just use the system.
You start working with poverty culture, you got to get used to low numbers. You got to get used to Union Gospel Mission has 140 beds, and 8 to 10 guys a year graduate the program. House of Charity has 110 beds, and they case manage, and maybe they'll see 8 to 10 to 12 of them a year move to the next level. So you get used to working with. That's a great success. 10% success rate is great, but you guys are in the 80, 90% success rate of seeing people build healthy, productive lives. Right. Partly because you kind of pre-screen and you don't. You take some that are like, we feel like we can really work with these. Right. How many families do you usually have at a time?
Well, part of our whole philosophy and niche is that we really want to focus on a few families and go mile deep instead of a mile wide. Salvation Army, UGM, they do a lot of great work with thousands, 100,000, million people because they're able to do a lot of things. What we try to do is, okay, we're going to go take a few families that really want and will do whatever it takes and go deep with them until they've overcome these obstacles so they get back in their homes. So we'll do 3 to 4 at a time, maybe 20 in a year. Kind of like what you guys do with the job training here. It's like we're going to take a few people at a time. We're going to really invest deeply in them. The really reason we do that is because I'd say 99% of the families that come in have come from broken homes where they didn't have a parent that taught them life skills and how to cook and how to budget and how to raise your kids. And so they're just repeating what they've already been grown up in. And so what we're trying to do, it takes time to then reestablish and rebuild into those that have never had it. Does that make sense? I don't know if that.
Yeah, and you guys, Steve, you guys walk with them way longer than just like, okay, you walk in here, we put you up in a church for a night or two, gave you a few meals, and found you a job. Goodbye, have a good life. Right. You walk with them for a long time.
Average is 75 days, sometimes 125, sometimes 30, depends on kind of what housing's available. But then we have what we call family enrichment, where they come back, former families and current homeless families come back every Monday night, and they will have a meal with us. We'll do life skills training. That's part of that. Part of that is just whenever they have an issue, when they need a question, they'll call on Renee, hey, how do I do this paperwork, or what do I do about this? And really, our doors are always open. That's why we call Family Promise. Make a promise to families, help them get back into homes and stay in homes.
And some of your stuff was like, it might be automotive repair. You might have a single mom who's like, I don't know how to fix a car, and I don't have money to do this. And
yeah, in one of our newsletters back there, I did a whole thing on volunteers, and one guy named Greg Plummer, he doesn't really help out in the program at all, except for help fix cars when they go down. And we've had 12 cars over the last couple of years that he has helped repair. And really, you think about it, well, it's just a car, but if you don't have a car, you can't get your kid to school, you can't get to your job, and really, sometimes you're a car away from being homeless again. And so that's kind of what our whole process is trying to find volunteers to come alongside so that you'll never have to experience homeless again.
And I think you said you've got 16 families in the program right now, kind of?
Three at a time.
16
over the last year.
Yeah, over the last year. Okay. So you are a graduate of University of Washington.
Yeah.
Played football for them. Yeah. You root for the wrong team at the Apple Cup every year, but we will get over that.
I got some people. I got some love here.
What was your degree in when you graduated? What did you get?
Actually majored in English.
You majored in English,
so I
okay.
really didn't know what I was going to do. I thought, well, I'll be a youth pastor, I can go into business, I can be a teacher, and I end up
Yeah, you could have been a million things. You could have
Yeah.
been a businessman. You could have gone off and made money. You could have been a teacher. You could have done literature. So why would you do this? How did you get to this?
Good question. I mean, I when I was graduating college, I had an English degree. A mentor that I had asked me what I was going to do, and I said, well, I want to be a youth pastor or do something like that. She said, I think you should get some life experience.
Well, life experience? Who needs that?
I said, I literally, she was like the only mentors I've really had. And I was like, okay. So I went on and I worked for a company called Sealand Service Shipping Company for about 3 years. We helped containers, get them on ships and off of ships, and worked down on the docks in Long Beach. And I was making great money. I just remember feeling though, like, and all I wanted to do was just mentor. And I at that moment when that person asked that, like a life experience, I said, okay, God, I'm going to go in this direction. But if you ever want to move me into ministry, then I'll love to do it. So about 3 years later.
The longshoreman didn't want to be mentored by you, huh?
Not so much. Ended up being a youth pastor. Got in there for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing the youth pastor thing, and I took kids on a mission trip for them. And at that moment, God asked me, "Why not you? Why not you go and be a missionary?" I've got 3 blonde daughters. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
And but I finally said, "Okay, God, wherever you want me to go, I'll do." And from wherever to Africa, we've been about that 5 years in Africa, training pastors, working with HIV and orphans, and then go there and just felt like God's call to come back and plant a church. And
now
so
you said you're in Africa. Are you at Africa when you get the Hebrews passage?
Pardon me?
Are you in Africa when you got that Hebrews 11:8?
Yeah.
So describe that. What happens?
Well, I mean, it was going great there. Kids loved it. Family loved it. It just had the sense that God was calling us back to plant a church. And it was, and say, okay, God, I'll obey. I'll follow you, whatever that looks like. And then I remember one morning I was having a quiet time, read my Bible in the morning. I remember right where I was. I mean, it was so clear. I'll never forget that moment. And I was reading Hebrews 11, and it got down to 11:8, and it says, and Abraham set out not knowing where he was going. And so I read that, and at that moment, I don't get a lot of hearing from God. I probably can think of 1 or 2 in my whole life. But at that moment, it was like, this is your passage.
You're hearing God just tell you, this is it.
This is
where
your
life.
passage, yeah.
You're going to go somewhere. You have no idea what you're going to do, and I'm
like,
going to send you.
La, 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 la. I'm hearing impaired. I have 2 hearing aids.
You're already in Zambia, Africa, with a
know,
blonde wife and 3
seriously,
blonde kids. We would all say you've already done it, but you're feeling no.
It was so much more comfortable to stay there than would it be to come back here and not know where you're going. And that's exactly the story. We came back, and we went on a missionary debriefing and really felt like we should take a sabbatical. Been 15 years of ministry, never rested. And so it really took a sabbatical with no job on the other side of it. The whole time, and needing to look for a job. Where are you going to move? I didn't even know where we were going to go. All through the winter, spring, and
Are
Seattle.
you here in Spokane?
No, in Seattle.
You're in Seattle.
And then just through some situations, came and visited and ended up moving to Spokane.
And the goal, when you moved here, was we're going to plant a church. God's calling us to plant a church.
So I did an internship at a church here, and not here, but in called Soma. And that was great. It just didn't feel like that was going to be the fit for where we were going to plant. And so now we're back to zero again.
Yeah.
Where are we doing? What are we doing?
And then for, I don't know, must have been almost a year, your family attended with us down there.
Yeah.
While you're like, I don't know, God's calling me to plant a church. I don't know.
Got your building sold, right? When we kind of came in.
Yeah, you're coming in like, well, we're trying to sell and get out of here. I don't know why.
Do we go plant with them? I know, so it's all confusing. Nothing was clear about it. Yeah.
And
At that time, where my job ended with Soma, I kind of started this website thing on the side just to kind of make ends meet. A pastor friend of mine came up and said, "Hey, there's this organization I'm on the board for. It's called Family Promise, and I think you'd be a good fit for it." And at the time, I looked at the salary and I was like, "Well, if this is really going to work for me."
oh yeah, the big bucks a nonprofit was calling.
But I was kind of desperate. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right?
Yeah.
And it really was a good fit. I mean, I had my experience in Africa and the poor, and that changed my life, and I had a whole new insight into that. And learning how to raise money as a missionary, that really kind of fit. And then just really the thing I most loved about it was just getting the churches and the volunteers in the churches engaged in mission. That was a thing that I was like, I want to do that for that reason, because I just felt so much. I just feel like churches want to sometimes serve and they want to get involved, but they don't know how, and they don't really have somebody to walk alongside them. And so those some of those reasons, I just kind of felt like that.
So you're offered the directorship of Family Promise, and you sort of take it initially as a side job while you're waiting to plant your church.
Right.
And then you do plant the church in the West Central.
Right. Yeah, and Family Promise just kept growing. And then I remember one day I was trying to plant a church over here. And then we were doing this family enrichment thing. I'm sitting around with about 20 people that are just struggling with life. We're talking, it's almost like an AA meeting. And I thought to myself, I'm doing church. Like, I tried to plant a church here, but church is happening here. And then just for the situations, I was like, this is where God has called me to here. And it kind of just gave me a piece to say, this isn't what I had planned. This is maybe more what you were doing. So
your real passion was discipling people, mentoring, guiding them, seeing the fire get lit in somebody either who was affluent and started working with poverty people, or B, a poverty person who's suddenly got hope again that they realize they could have a better life.
Right.
So your passions, those things, and you're sitting there in a room full of homeless family, promise people, and you're like, this is my church. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And God says, yeah.
So I stepped back from the church plant, and here what are we going to do? And ended up actually down here, Covenant Spokane, which is interesting. And they have a Christian school, which is great for our kids. And it's been a good spot to kind of drop into. They have a heart for the poor. Now they're a support church for Family Promise, so that's cool. Huh. So anyway, I mean, it has again, and I guess through the whole process, for me, like God has really humbled me to a point where I'm just like, I'll do anything. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of God. I mean, like whatever it takes, God. My life is so short. I'm 44. I'll do whatever it takes. And so that's been kind of like this journey, of how do you, trying to be so you can make a difference, but just like God, whatever you want to do, and I'll just one step at a time. And
so it's still the Hebrews 11:8. Go where I send you. You're not going to know.
Yeah.
Go to the place I'm going to show you.
Right.
And right now it's Family Promise. What are some of your biggest joys doing Family Promise?
Well, I mean, the reason I got into it was the getting churches involved and when I get a church that get the taste of it. It's just really interesting having a bird's eye view of the Spokane church. You have a lot of churches that I would say liberal, but that on this side they don't really value the Word of God, but they value service. And you have a lot of churches over here that value the Word of God, but often don't value service and caring for the poor. And so when you find those churches in the middle that are both, I had a church over here in the valley called Kaleo, and they love God's Word, and they love caring for the poor. And so, I got to the pastor, and church started doing it, and then the church just began to take off, and they're starting to serve. They began to host, and they just like do cool stuff, like on Sunday nights when the families come in. Instead of just doing one meal, they bring all the volunteers in. Everybody brings an ingredient, and then they have this big fiesta party, so that the homeless families get to meet all the volunteers. So instead of it being a surprise every night, it's like a reunion, seeing the people you connected with. They show the Sunday Night Football on TV, and then they start loving these families unconditionally. Like, for example, we had one woman, single mom, who had a 16-year-old pregnant daughter. Well, the furthest place a 16-year-old pregnant daughter wants to be is a church, right? I mean, could have been judged. Well, anyway, when they saw that this daughter come in, they knew she was going to find out what the sex of the baby was. So this Kaleo church, planned a surprise party, a revealing party. Decorated the entire room, food, cupcakes, had pink and blue, and they actually had found out ahead of time through their sister of the daughter, pregnant daughter, which it was going to be. So they had all the thing. It's just so cool, just loving people. And last week we had we have a refugee to come in there, and found out the refugee had never had a birthday. They didn't know her birthday was. They never had a birthday party. So they threw this huge surprise birthday party with her type of meal, and they had a dance party. And so, just seeing churches get a glimpse of not only how cared for for the poor, but then be creative in it and just engage in the messiness of it without any expectation, without any kind of their parameters. It's just, there's nothing greater for me.
So for you guys, much like what we did downtown, it's you don't have to go through a church service. You don't have to sing worship songs. You're not going to listen to a sermon. You come in as you are, and we'll just love you where you're at.
Just loving people where they're at.
Till you ask
they
us
ask
about
why.
our faith, and we'll share it. So,
exactly.
Which is the same slogan for our Streetwise: love them till they ask you why. Because we had realized, the homeless people downtown, to them, giving out a Jesus tract or singing songs or preaching at them, they've been preached out a lot. And so for them, that's just a con game. I pretend to accept your Jesus, you get all goo goo gaga, and I can con an extra $20 out of you by telling you I'd lost my prescription medications. And so they're sick of the con game and being sold Jesus. And what they're really looking for is, who's just going to love me for who I am? And once you love me, then I might ask you what it is you believe about God, about Jesus.
We've seen a lot of people come to Christ, get connected in church. We've seen people come back because of, really, sometimes people are in the church for the first time. They come to church for the first time to stay overnight in it, and they have all these expectations.
That's their very first time ever setting foot in a church, was a night they're homeless and spending the night.
Exactly, and then begin to realize, wow, people love me, because that's the beauty of our program. We're not paid. People that are providing meals and hanging out aren't paid to be there. So there's something about that thing. Here's the community of Spokane, night after night after night, week after week, with no string attached, just providing meals and loving and listening, and not even expecting me to be talk and being faithful, being flexible and cool.
What are some of the biggest obstacles you have to face?
I think sometimes Christians don't take seriously the Matthew 25 when Jesus says the least of these. That when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was
in prison, you visited me. Yeah.
Clothes. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me in. And so they don't take it seriously. So when you come and present this opportunity, you can make a difference in homeless families and fulfill Matthew 25. And they're like, no thanks. That's hard. I think another obstacle that we face is just is that when people want to give, they want to give on their terms. Like when they want to serve, they want to be volunteer. They want to serve on their terms. They want to serve, and it's not messy and not hard and not weird and scary. And we screen, and so if most parents never have issues. But it's like we want to give toys, or we want to write a check. We don't want to actually have to sit down and listen to a story and then feel bad. And sometimes that's hard. And when we can get over expectations as a volunteer, and even not Family Promise, but just in general, getting involved in a family, when you really get to know their story, the story begins to press on you. I think that's the hardest thing in Africa for me was that, I've been on mission trips, and you've seen them, and you go for 2 weeks, and it's sad, and you feel bad, and you come home, but when you're there day after day after day after day, and there's a kid at your gate asking for food, and you can hear them crying across the thing, it's like putting heavy rocks in your backpack, and it's just, you weigh down. And so you get in this place where you're like on two extremes. Either I can be like, sucks to be you, sorry, but I'm going to live my life. Or I can be broken over your brokenness because it's not fair, and why not me? But find that spot where you're caring and compassionate and yet able to function. It's hard. That's an obstacle. And so most people just say, well, I don't want to go there. This is too hard. And yet that's what Jesus did. He came into the mess, and he was okay with the mess and didn't try to fix people. I think that's the other thing is you come into it and you're like, oh, I can just do this and fix this and fix this and fix that. And you realize that it takes years to unfix something that's taken years.
Yeah, after we started serving 150 people a week at our meals downtown, every week we got to know a lot of them really well, hearing a lot of their stories. And about a year into it, somebody asked me, like, what do you think's the difference between middle-class people and poverty people, homeless people? I said, it's really easy to say, family. That's the only difference, is that middle-class people got a good start with a reasonably decent family. You graduated high school if you're middle class. Chances are you lived at home for a year. You got your first job. You lived at home till you built up some cash. You bought your first car. Chances are you got some help. If you didn't get cash money, you got advice on how to buy it and what to look for. You got all kinds of breaks for having a decent family, even if you don't appreciate those breaks. Right. And poverty culture people got none of that. And so one of the things we realized with poverty culture, the very word father, they've never seen a good father. They don't know what that word even really means. Mm-hmm. Motherhood. What's mothers? Their images of mothers and how mothers act is also whacked. And so the only way that a poverty culture person is going to learn how to adjust and shift up and become a functional middle class productive person is they have to observe good fathers in action. They have to observe good mothers in action. They've got to watch it, see it, study it, and go, oh, there's a different way to handle a conflict. Oh, dads sacrifice for their kids. Wow, I've never seen that in my life. And they begin to see that. Now, you don't do that in one quickie little workshop, hand out a meal, here's your mashed potatoes, your life is fixed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in some sense, we become their family. Sometimes they're the only family they have. Renee's like the mom, and I'm like the uncle, and Kermit's, I'm the cool uncle, and Kermit's the weird uncle. But they have their names, right? Actually, I'm not the cool uncle. Sometimes it depends on.
Sometimes you're the weird uncle.
Yeah,
you just don't know it,
or the mean one. But it's just that we do become a family, and sometimes we're the only family they have.
So, and that's things like for a birthday party, for a reveal party, for things that are like, they never saw that, they never got that. And that joy that their life gets celebrated, which has not happened for a lot of them ever. Right. So if people here thought, hey, I'd like to get involved, I'd kind of like to, I'm not ready to quit my job and go work for Family Promise, which is fine because you don't have any positions open anyway. Right. But they're like, I'd like to get involved. What could people do?
Well, yeah, we talk about support churches, and obviously right now North Hill Christian Church, just up on there on Wellesley and Post, Wall Street and Wellesley. They are one of our host churches, and they have a great facility, but their church is pretty small, and so they don't have enough people to be able to provide meals, the overnight hospitality, and drive vans, and whatever we need help with. And so they've been asking for a while now, hey, do you know any churches that could be support churches? And I've tried, but for whatever reason, people haven't engaged with that. And so what we're looking for, really, it seems so simple, and you think, oh, I can do that, is just a couple meals a week every 12 weeks. And so that would look like is maybe two couples come together, and okay, I'll make the main course, and you bring the salad and the bread and the drinks. And at 5:15, we show up at that church. We kind of set the meal out, but we don't just serve it. We actually all get together, and we all sit around tables and eat and talk, and then when we're all done, I clean it up and I bring it out.
So it'd be like, for instance, here 3 couples could get together and say, once every 3 to 4 months, we're going to provide 2 meals for how many people? Right. 16, 15?
Yeah, exactly.
15, 16 people. And we'll just cook it in our own ovens. We pay for it out of our own pocket. Yep. And we just show up at North Hill Church, and we're like, sit down with a bunch of kids and moms and dads and feed them, and that's our contribution.
Absolutely. And sometimes, most churches have a coordinator, so that person maybe who's kind of good at administrating and kind of has good connections, they'll kind of just oversee it. So they'll talk with North Hill and say, okay, we have Monday and Friday open. Could you do those? And that coordinator will email out, hey, Gathering House, anybody available on Monday or Friday? Yeah, I am. And then we kind of go from there, and we kind of set it up from there.
Okay. That's pretty simple to provide a dinner for some people once every 3 months.
It's kind of no-brainer, honestly.
It feels like it, but yet it is.
When you think about a chance to care for the poor, and really almost in every sense of that, when you're hungry, when you're thirsty, when you're a stranger, welcome in with clothes, all of that stuff is kind of met. Even prisoners. We don't think about prisoners. A lot of them are imprisoned to debt or issues or even their own struggles of life, and just by providing meals, we're helping them overcome those things.
Yeah. So the key is having inside a church somebody who can coordinate that and say, I'll coordinate.
So the pastor doesn't have to do it, or the board, or whatever. But
because pastors got their brains all over the place.
Exactly.
So what else? What else have you guys got? You've got.
Well, on this little newsletter here, I have some different opportunities. Like I talked about Greg Plummer, he's a mechanic and fixes cars. We have people that have come in and just picked up furniture. We have people that donate furniture, which is awesome because our families, they come in with nothing and they go out with a whole house full of stuff.
Yes, you find them an apartment. Yeah. They have nothing, so you got to find everything.
We have donated couches and beds and whatever, and they kind of furnish their place, and we get pots and pans.
You have a warehouse where you store that stuff?
Well, we put it in a storage unit for all the furniture, and we have.
So you could accept donations.
Yes, we can.
From furniture, couches, dishes.
Exactly. We do need another truck. That'd be helpful, but we're eventually getting there. And then we have people that would do that. We also need help when families move out. That's the coolest thing ever, is helping a family move into a place for the first time again.
Just the muscle to carry a couch into the living room.
And then we have we have a little area where we keep toiletries and different things, diapers for families, for our former families and current families.
Now, you've also talked about wanting to kind of expand the long term, once the family's moved into a little house or an apartment, caring for them long stretch.
My greatest dream is to start a mentoring ministry where we would have either small groups of churches or even individuals that after a family gets into a home, you're there for them. Like, for example, we had a husband, wife, 4 kids, just move into a place, literally just take the Garland all the way down, just right there. And and I'm wondering how they're doing, and he's working, he's got a job, she got a job through our program, and kids are in school and all that stuff, but I have no idea. And it doesn't like all the problems go away once you're in a home, right? Sometimes you have more problems now because now you have to provide meals and do all these things, and to have somebody that could just walk with them for 3 years, or kind of what my thought is, at least a 3-year process. Be there, help them through life skills, just be there for friendship, be available through problems and different things, and that's kind of my dream.
So you'd have like a pretty healthy, what we would classify in our society, at least a successful middle-class family. You'd say, yeah, I'll kind of adopt a family,
right.
Check in on them once a month, befriend them, and see what they need, and
right.
coach them through some money management issues or whatever, figure out what they might need, and some, how they're getting along with everything. And if problems arise, figure out ways to help them fix their disposal and whatnot,
right.
and just sort of stay with them for 2 or 3 years.
Exactly. That's my dream, because I know how much I dream that not just even for the family. I really dream more for you guys. If I get people in there to do that, I know their lives are going to change as they wrestle through and deal with and get messy and muddy with all the different issues that go with poverty.
Talk about your ABC poster.
Yeah, so we're a small organization, $200,000 a year. We have some funding from churches, some funding from volunteers and kind of fundraisers, and some from foundations, grants. So we're always struggling, trying to make ends meet. And so one of the things we tried to do creatively this year was to do a thing called Art for a Home. How do we? And it kind of came together with this gal that's done the Spokane city alphabet. She did one for Seattle, Portland, LA, and Tacoma. I saw her at Art Fest down in Browns Edition, and I said, "Oh, do you have a Spokane alphabet?" "Oh, no, I don't really know Spokane. I don't really know how to market it." I thought, I know Spokane, and I know how to market it. And so we actually commissioned her to do the Spokane alphabet. And so we did kind of the best and greatest of all the A to Z of all the Spokane icons. So Air Force, Bloomsday, Hoop Fest, Mac.
This is the Spokane alphabet poster. A to Z.
Yeah.
All about it's little iconic, little original art, little
right.
Spokane.
And so we had
pieces.
people underwrite the whole process. So everything, every poster and print and coffee mug and has been underwritten. So everything we sell from this will 100% help homeless children and their families.
And this has been done in Seattle, Portland?
Well, Seattle, Tacoma, Portland, LA.
Yeah, and now there's one for Spokane. Thanks to Family Promise.
Yeah.
And you've got them back there for sale.
There. And did you guys know that today is Spokane's birthday? 134 years. Woo! So
that's right.
What better day to go back and spend $20 on a poster, or $70 on a framed poster, or $50 on the backing poster? A free postcard back there with the Spokane alphabet. And
it's cute. It really is cute. Yeah. So I like it. So let's field some questions from anybody. Got some questions for Steve about his organization, what he's doing, or about him personally? You might want to ask. And yes, fire away.
I'm sorry.
She's asking when you have the meals provided, like at North Hill up here. Does North Hill know way in advance what days they need?
We know until 2017 what weeks they're going to be doing.
So you can calendar it way out.
Exactly.
So if someone wanted to do that, you'd be like, you could know now a meal that you might not provide till next summer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Somebody else, you got questions for Steve? What he's doing, the work he's doing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to somehow connect, if you would like to be a coordinator and help kind of oversee this process. And we have a whole training program that we would train the coordinator and how everything works. And that coordinator then would have a meeting together with the church, and then you kind of train them on basically just how do you do this, what do you not say, what do you say, kind of all those questions and fears you have will slowly melt away, and then you begin to feel equipped to be able to do that. So that's the biggest thing, is to talk to Rob, and then Rob would just talk to me, and then we would have
We'll talk to Pastor Chris up there.
Who?
Chris Snow, and the pastor there, right?
Well, this first here, and then I would then go to Chris, and we would then connect.
So if people here are passionate about that, probably a good thing to do would be like first find a person, say, I'd coordinate that.
Yeah.
And then we could gather the names here through Denise in the office, blast it, who wants to be, and get a list together. Have a little quick team meeting here and to meet Pastor Chris. He comes in for coffee a lot. And Steve's second office is that corner right there. He's here about 3 days a week drinking coffee. So you can always come in anytime to the coffee shop and meet with Steve. So it's pretty easy to say, I'm interested in helping.
Yeah. Oh, even if you don't want to coordinate, but I want to do a meal, just, get a list going, and then we'll come in and have a training and go from there.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
And automotive skills. You've just got one guy fixing cars, but somebody else might be saying...
Definitely automotive. We have, if you're the person where you want everything to be straight and orderly and organized, we need you. If you want to, just be one of my guinea pigs for helping mentor a family and kind of experiment with that would be cool. And then just being a voice, whether it's sharing what we're doing or...
Yeah. Other questions for Steve? Anything else?
Our website is familypromiseofspokane.org, and that's where we also have a list of all the volunteer needs that we have.
All the kinds of things
All
that
the
someone
kinds of
could
things,
volunteer for. You had a follow-up.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Brochures, I mean, you got them back there, and you'll be around for a while after service for that kind of, okay.
Familypromiseofspokane.org. And if you want to look at the Spokane alphabet, just SpokaneAlphabet.com.
Familypromiseofspokane.org.
All one word.
Yeah, all right. You got some brochures back there, too, though, with the
Newsletters
and things and all that. Some of that info's on those, right? Okay. Anybody else got a question for Steve? Look how thorough you were. We had a lot more questions first service than a fraction of the people.
Maybe they're afraid.
All right. That's it.
No, I think the biggest thing, and just in general, forget Family Promise for now, but just really as you step into caring for the poor, the biggest thing is just to lower your expectations that you are going to change the world, and to don't try to fix people, but just love them where they're at. And I think that you will have more effective change as you just love people. We have such a, I always say this, one of my slogans is that children never choose to be homeless. They don't, they don't have any say whether or not their parents are homeless. Sometimes their parents made bad choices, ended up there. Sometimes they didn't, they ended up there. But in the sense where we just begin to love people where they're at, and that's part of it. And and when we think about doing meals, you think, well, I'm just doing one meal. How can I make a difference? Well, you're one piece of the puzzle among a big piece that's helping heal people's lives. And that's what's so beautiful about the church. When the church comes together is that, we're working inside a Catholic church or a Methodist church or whatever, but we're all working together doing one puzzle for one family to get them back in it.
Yeah, I think we would echo that. Those of us who worked with the poor downtown felt the same thing. You could look at a person's life you began to work with, and you see, oh, you need this, and this. Right. Wow, it can feel overwhelming. But I can see you. I can see you and talk to you and hear your story, and I know the steps you need to take, but you can't do that. You have to sit there and say, what is needed in this moment?
So we
Not what's all the things that it's overwhelming to them. They need what is needed right now in this moment, and being faithful in that moment.
Do over those things, but we need people helping provide meals and those kind of things. I think that's what the beauty part of it is.
Because the beauty of your program is that once they leave a church, they've been bedded down for the night in a church, got a great meal, got a breakfast, they leave. You have a day center that they go to, and there's case management, and there's computer work there, and there's follow-up with how'd that job interview go, or how you doing getting that ID. And so there's actual until they get back on their feet, there's continued daily support all the time.
Absolutely.
Which is a huge thing. So
the only thing I'd add to this, I think about, I want to serve, I want to care. I think there's kind of the intersection of your experiences that God led you through, whether it's you didn't see it coming, whether it's websites that I do, like I've done before, and God used that for this, or whether it's just a situation. Then you have your experiences and things that you've experiences. You have your giftings, things that you're good at, whether you're administrative or visionary or whatever, and then you have your passion. And I think that in some ways, as we go through our lives, God seems like, I think He cares more about us serving than we even do. And I think He has a plan, and we begin to think about how do my experiences and my passions, and my skills kind of line up. I think that's where you begin to find your sweet spot. I think that's part of it. It's just being available and saying, God, I'll do whatever. What is it that you want me to do? And then kind of working that out.
And so you take a few risks not knowing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if this is what I'm going to love doing, but I'm going to try it a couple times to see what happens. And God may open some doors that are incredible. And we didn't know anything when we started feeding homeless people downtown. Didn't know a thing. I don't ever recall having a conversation with a homeless person in my life. That first night we invited 35 people in. One of them's here today, ain't you, Bill? Very first night that we ever did a meal. And it just kept escalating and snowballing into more and more.
And look where you are now.
Yeah.
Because you saw that, you thought, this is what is missing in Spokane. We need a jobs training program to help people get from that first to the second rung that doesn't exist currently. And I see the fruit of your work here, and people that wouldn't have had a chance, but because you're able to focus on a few families at a time, a few people at a time, you're giving them a chance now to get over. And that's where I think, you start out here, didn't really know where you're going, and you kind of wrestle through it, and then you see all these things come together, and now you're at the sweet spot of where God is doing. Yeah. And I love it. I love what you guys are doing.
And it's fun. And we'd hire more if we were a busier cafe. We'd hire a lot more people. That's kind of our obstacle. Lance, you're going to be the last question.
Future promotions coming up. As in...
Where they're going to promote Family Promise for something, you mean? Fundraising. Any future fundraising promotional events?
We just kind of finished we had a big unveiling for the alphabet. I don't know if you guys realize the alphabet was created on a vintage old window, reverse European style. So it's actually down at the Mac. at the Museum of Art and Culture right now, because being stored there, but displayed there. But that was one of the biggest ones. Our next one coming up would be in Super Bowl of Caring. We have churches and their youth groups. They'll actually on the Super Bowl day, Super Bowl soup or bowl. I get it, soup, and we raise money for that way. And then
works.
I know March 11th we're doing the Little Women Civic Theater where we basically somebody underwrites the whole thing and then whatever tickets we sell. So those are some of the few things coming up.
Yeah, and you still do the Monday night dinners with everybody. Future or families that are currently in the program and families who have, let's call it, graduated, and you do it once a month or every Monday.
Every week on Monday night.
You get a Monday. And we've talked about doing a couple of those here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still on the table or not, but we've talked about hosting those here, which would be kind of fun. So be some great opportunities. If you guys would, can we just pray for Steve and what's going on with his ministry?
Thank you so much.
So why don't you stand with Steve? So, dear God, I thank you so much for the inspiration of the life of someone who could have been a million things and could have chased a whole set of different American dreams of success and power and influence and wealth, but instead looked to you and said, here I am, send me. And I don't care what it is, Lord, I'll be faithful to it. And you are blessing him for it. And we pray that you will continue to just pour out your blessing on Steve and his family, and that you will meet all of their financial needs as he's just kind of struggling through a lower-end job that doesn't pay great compared to what corporations would, but it's your work, and it's so much more rewarding. Would you bless their family and their home and their finances? And we ask, Lord, that you give strength to the organization of Family Promise, that you take down any obstacles that they may have, and you raise up great support people around them. We pray that in this next year you will bring them more volunteers, Lord, more influence of money, of people, of notoriety, of success, so that more families, Lord, can be brought out of the destitute situation they're in and brought into health and healing. And we pray for those families, Lord, who are currently in the program and ask that you would open up doors with jobs, great job opportunities for them, that you would provide housing for them in miraculous ways. They would find their perfect home to settle in, and that you would guide them and bless them for their faithfulness to go through a program and say, God, I don't know what to do. Let these people of Family Promise teach me, and I'll be obedient to it. And then we pray for those families, Lord, who have been in homes and have found jobs. You would continue to bless their lives and strengthen them in as they participate in their churches that they're in, and as they participate giving back to Family Promise through their wisdom and through their insight, that you would bless them accordingly. May your Spirit and your glory and your power be upon Steve and Family Promise. We ask in your holy name, Jesus. Amen.